Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight and welcome to another expert-led webinar brought to you by No Compromise Parenting. So I'm Apple Chang, I'll be the host for tonight. I'm a marketing professional and at the same time a mother of two, and I have been a No Compromise parent since the beginning. So this is a fourth webinar under the No Compromise Parenting, and we hope you were able to catch our other webinars previously in the past few weeks. So last time we had Professor Jay Bernardo to discuss about how mompreneurs can cope in the pandemic, and previously we've also had Dr. Jamie and Dr. Gino to discuss about pregnancy during the pandemic. If you haven't seen them, you may still see them. It's uploaded on our Facebook page. Just follow No Compromise Parenting on Facebook. And also you may visit our Instagram at No Compromise Parent. We also have our Viber community where you can ask all questions about anything and under the sun, especially about parenting. So feel free to join our Viber community, and we will be posting the link in our comment section below later. So let's wait for a few minutes while others are still connecting. And for questions later about our discussion, you may reply at the comment sections and we will try to respond to you and answer them later. Now, to make our webinar today more interesting, we have partnered with nurseryvan.com, your go-to one-stop shop for all your parenting needs, and we will be giving away 3,000 worth of gift certificates from Nursery Van, as sponsored by Cycles, Cradle, BiteBlock, and Smiles. We will be giving out 5 lucky viewers gift certificates from Nursery Van, and we will be announcing them later at the comment section. So ensure, please make sure that you stay tuned in the end so when we announce the winners. So today we will be discussing a very pressing topic for all of us parents. And I'm sure all of our parents have been in discussion with their friends regarding this topic. Especially, it's very popular discussion among parent groups in Viber. So I personally are very much concerned about this topic because I have 2 kids. So tonight we will be discussing the future of schooling. So we will be discussing which route to take with your kids' education after this pandemic. We know it can be very confusing, and we have a lot of decision to make as parents on how to move forward with your kids' education, especially now that regular schools have stopped. So we hope you're able to address and guide you on the options tonight and give you the pros and cons should you decide whether to homeschool your children or to opt for distance learning. So tonight we invited the experts in the industry and the best speakers today to talk about the new normal schooling options. And we have been very fortunate to be graced by our experts, Dr. Donna Simpao and Adrian Luke Cruz. Dr. Donna currently is a founder of the biggest online homeschool support group called Homeschoolers of the Philippines in Facebook, and she has been the president of the Homeschool Association of the Philippine Islands for the past 2 years. The Homeschool Association of the Philippine Islands currently is a group of Filipino homeschool leaders and advocates. Recently, Dr. Donna partnered with Liana Lim Cruz and their Kids Starter team to create the first ever complete preschool program for home use called Kids Starter Curious Curriculum. A homeschooling teacher for 17 years with all her children doing well in college and high school, Dr. Donna is now leading the movement to equip others to homeschool with proper foundation, mind, and skill set. Welcome and good evening, Dr. Donna.
Good evening to all. Thank you for inviting me. That was a very warm welcome and introduction. Thank you so much, Apple. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have now Adrian Luke Cruz from Google Education. So currently, Adrian is an EdTech coach, registered nurse, licensed professional teacher, and currently Google Educator Group's community, South Manila community leader, and a Google Certified Innovator. He aims to lead schools and educational institutions towards digital transformation through the adoption of Google for Education products and programs to increase the awareness and productivity. Currently, he uses experience in digital learning programs, knowledge in effective traditional teaching practices, and exposure in different public and private schools to empower educators to build engaging connections with their students and achieve maximum learning potential. Alongside his current goals, he started Look Beyond the Classroom, an online passion project which helps inspire and elevate educators, innovative skills, create sustainable programs, and drive to create their own local content for teaching. Welcome and thank you for so much gracing us with your presence today, Luke.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. So today, I'm sure we're all very excited to start. And we're very curious on learning on what path we should take our children with. So without further ado, I will lead you to Dr. Donna so she can start already the options for homeschooling, what tips and tricks that she can teach us, and how is it done. So Dr. Donna, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. You know, it's amazing that I had learned that our co-speaker is a registered nurse. So with you this afternoon is a doctor and a nurse who are now dabbing themselves in the field of education. You know, learning never stops. And so as models to our children and to the youth, we are continuously learning. And even I've been doing homeschool seminars for the past 10 years, and I would say that it is evolving, and now it is now being contextualized given the new normal that we have. So I hope to bring calm, I hope to bring clarity, and I hope to bring options. You know, it's really for parents of young children, and this group, I am assuming you have very young children and you are very young, and so I can imagine the overwhelmed. I can imagine feeling drowned and feeling that your kids are missing out, you know, because of what's happening. But I think there is a silver lining. I think there is gold. And it is my desire that Adrian and I will help you find that gold in this pandemic. Okay, so homeschool basic, how is it done? What is our role as parent? Does it really work? And, you know, how does it work? I was introduced earlier as an expert. However, you know, unlike in a medical field or in the educational field, you know, you can actually have experts that are placed after your name. You know, like Adrian has an RN, I have an MD, and, you know, you can even go further for a PhD. Homeschooling is a little bit different. You know, if you talk about experts as a person who has a comprehensive and authoritative knowledge and skill in a particular area, you're assuming that there is something constant in all of these areas, right? There is something that can be replicable and doable in all, uh, you know, in all areas. But are they really homeschool experts? You know, am I really a homeschool expert? I can give you the tools because of years of experience, but the true homeschool expert will be the parents in their homes. You know, there are billions of homeschool setups all over the world, even, you know, made more, you know, increased in a thousandfold because of the pandemic. And so one can only attempt to be an expert of their own homes, of their own children. I cannot be the one to homeschool your children. I cannot be an expert of your children's personality, of your learning style, of the family setup, of the work environment, whether or not there is a helper who can assist, or a sibling or a grandparent. I cannot do that. You know, I can only give you the tools, what I have seen in the homeschool community the past 2 decades. So when I think of an expert, maybe I am going to invite you to be an expert of your own home. And let us not think of it as a 10-year plan. Let us just think of it for the next 10 months. As you think of preschool, I am assuming the primary years, because this community, I am assuming, are using baby products and all that stuff. But I am also assuming that you probably have older children or older, you know, siblings of your children right now. So, waiver, I would like to just say that I am a doctor. So, I come from a medical field. I love research. I love data. I love evidence. I also come from a Christ Commission fellowship. So, faith is very much into our homeschooling. I am also an author and creator of a homeschool resource. I had learned that our dear co-speaker Adrian is also into innovation and in projects that support local content for the educational field. And thank you that I am one of those that have created local content. So I'm just giving you my associations, and now I am the president of Happy, and therefore I am going to promote homeschooling. So there is my my family. You know, I am a doctor by profession, however, paused with my career in the medical field to homeschool initially my one, and then they became two, and they became 3 and 4 children during their preschool from toddler up to grade 6, so 13. So I handled partly with a partner school from preschool, grade, kinder, all the way to 6 times 4. So you would think 24 levels, and you would think 24 tuition fees that were saved. And I had released them, all of them slowly. So it was an addition subtraction problem. At some point in 2018, I had released my last son, who is Gino, who is now 15 years old. That's how we look now. So my kids now are 21, 19, 17, and 14. One wants to become a doctor. That's my eldest. That's Vince. Another one wants to become and is taking psychology for education, Marco. Raya is my artist, and Gino is still an incoming grade 9, and so figuring out what he'd like to do for college or high school. I mean, for college. So, and for life, you know. So pretty much the 3 of my older children are already aware or know their path. And that is one benefit of homeschooling. When you get to know the children and you get to know their passions and you support them in their gifting and in their interests. So most of the time, I notice that those who come out of homeschooling in high school know already what they'd like to do. And so they're able to choose a field in college that is so apt or so in line with the purpose that they believe is for them, or the place that they have here on earth. So just to give you a peek on how we do school, just to give you a bit more excitement of how beautiful the lessons are for homeschooling. Because of the freedom that we have, we are given the opportunity to really create our curriculum, create our schedule and our lessons in the way that we think it will best teach a lesson. So we raid our pantries, we raid our gardens, we create a vegetable garden. Even how small your pocket garden is, you can grow plants, trees, and fruits and vegetables. And for a child to see this from seed to fruit or seed to vegetable and all the process, that is actually what we do. You know, we incorporate everything. In this little picture here that we were studying about the elements of the periodic table, how boring it is to just memorize the symbols and really not know which these things are. So what a homeschooler would do would open your medicine cabinet, would open your supplies cabinet, would open your pantry and look at the nutritional labels, the recipes, ingredients, and look for iron, look for boron, look for calcium, and you make lessons alive. So that's an example of integrating science with all other subjects, because we also do math, we also do social studies, we do all kinds of other subjects that can be incorporated. This is an example of a science project that had a lot of math. It was a solar system display wherein it was scaled to size but not to distance. And my 2 children who were collaborating in this project, the teacher Girly Argosino is one of our family advisors in the homeschool provider that I had worked with. Later on, you will know what a homeschool provider means. This is a lesson on the solar system that also incorporated art. And that's my daughter, who really loved to, to learn how to show the different characteristics of the planets through acrylic paint and all the techniques on making stars. So this is a science/math activity with an art element. This is how we teach math, Again, it is integrated, though the core subject subject is math, it is integrated with other disciplines. Gino, at 7 years old, had a sari-sari store. I think he was 6. And we had helped him because he needed to save and he needed to raise money for a toy that he wanted to buy. In this lesson, we did counting, we did pricing, we did money, we did markup, yung profit, income, and the older kids helped with the computation of the price. We also did what you call marketing, and I think that is what Apple does for cycles, marketing. And so Raya and her art skills, she created flyers, she created posters. And who were our market, or who were the ones who bought? These were either neighbors, grandparents, visitors, coaches for PE or tennis, those who came to the house. And in a span of, I think, 1 month, Gino was able to raise enough money to buy a Lego toy. And we translated all the information or all the knowledge to another. We stepped up, we joined Kidopreneur, which is a yearly activity in Glorieta or in whatever venue they choose, where children are taught business skills and they sell for a day. And from conceptualization to the actual last sale, we did it for about 3 or 4 weeks. And we incorporated everything from business, money, doing computer sheets like Excel, creating an Instagram account, marketing, and everything. I am married to a marketer with almost 25 experience in the corporate world. And so he also helped us, how do you bring it out? And that's the role of parents in a homeschooling situation here, no? So this is how we do math. Of course, we do drills, but we make it come alive after you've understood the concept. We make sure you apply it right away. This is our phenomenon-based learning. It is a term used called PBL, or project-based learning, wherein there is a phenomenon and you get multidisciplines from it. When I say multidisciplines, I talk about different subjects. So this was our Typhoon Ondoy, and I think this was many years ago, wherein we were homeschooling, but we could not do business as usual because of half of Metro Manila was still underwater. We are living in Alabang, and in the Laguna de Bay areas, a lot were in evacuation centers. And I really just felt we need to stop our regular schooling, just like the others who didn't have school. We learned about why there was typhoon, what happened to the flooding. We learned about many things, the causes of flooding, but it wasn't enough to stop. It wasn't enough to just learn the knowledge. You had to bring knowledge to a application, and of course character building. And so there we said, how would you feel if you kept eating noodles every day or canned goods every day in an evacuation center? Wouldn't you feel so blessed or so thrilled to receive hot food? So that's what we did for 2 weeks. And all of those friends and neighbors who were not homeschooled, who did not have classes, came to our house and they all helped. And my sons were helping and they were packing it by 10. So instead of doing math, we were skip counting by tens. The tens were the food packs. So in a way, that is part of our lives where we become sensitive to what's happening around us. Again, as I said earlier, homeschool lessons will allow your children to find themselves. They will also be inspired and equipped in their passions. This is my daughter who, as early as 7 years old, was showing signs of artistry. She was very creative. She sewed her own clothes at 9 or 10. And eventually from sewing, she started acrylic painting, oil painting, and now the picture there with the Instagram, I think that was her Instagram, she sewed her clothes, her dress, just about a month ago because of the lockdown. There was nothing to do. And the 3 paintings in the lower part, Whereas if you notice Timothy Chalamet there, he's our favorite, and this almost Asian girl, and this girl with a lot of psychedelic colors. These were all done during lockdown because a homeschooler has so much time to discover themselves and a lot of time to practice. So she discovered herself. At 13, she knew she wanted to do art, and so because of all the exposure. I have more examples of what homeschooling is like in my blog, which is homeschool.ph. Again, I'd like to share this paradigm of educational core by Richard Elmore, where student, content, and teacher are in a triangle form. It is not a two-way in among two things. I had grown, or I had been trained in a teacher-student paradigm, wherein teacher has all the information and the student learns, and the teacher assesses through an exam, which is standardized. And normally they would reward those who are very good in math, science, and the languages, no? With a shift in the paradigm, or with a shift in the educational framework, where they are now thinking or accepting that the content meaning is the subject material, which is the lesson, the curriculum, the tutorial, whatever content, whether it be in printed or in digital, is now part of the triangle. A student can now go direct to the content and learn it. It is no longer teacher directed or teacher didactic, two-way thing. It is now a sort of like an interaction among three factors. So I do not need, as a teacher, to know everything to be a math teacher. I do not need to know everything to be able to teach a concept, because of the influx of the internet and influx of good quality material that can serve as your curriculum or subject. And I think Adrian will share more about that. So this removes the pressure of being an expert. This removes the pressure of me being an algebra expert or something like chemistry expert, because at some point when I am feeling inadequate, I can already go to online learning. I can go to Khan Academy. I can go to National Geographic. I can go to other sites for higher learning. Now, this is actually a linear model of how one goes through the process of decision making, but it is not really linear. It is not like one after the other. I could not create a pathway that that would go back and forth. But for the purpose of just knowing the decision points, our homeschooler Ryan Buizon created this to explain to us that these are the sort of the stops that you need to go through if you are seriously considering homeschooling. And I will define homeschooling in a better way later. But basically, would you like to enroll with a school that will help you homeschool, or would you do it on your own and just go for DepEd for tests? Then you figure out learning styles of your children, different approaches and curriculum. Then you decide which provider. It's just like deciding which private school, which public school to go to. However, all of these you can decide a provider based on the materials they offer. You can decide a provider based on if they are really in tune with the learning style of your family. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a linear thing. No, it's all later. I will show you in a Venn diagram how these decision-making points affect the other. But I'm just saying that it's not an easy decision as if you were just picking a school. Would I go Waldorf? Will I go progressive? Will I go a forest school? Will I go for a traditional preschool or a traditional school? It's not as simple as that, because you are taking charge of everything. When you choose a school, you're assuming that everything is there already. Curriculum, learning style, teacher support, everything is there. You just need to enroll and bring your kids to school. But when you're going to homeschool, or all the components that is offered by a school will now be on your plate to decide on. That's why a lot of people would like to have a homeschool provider to support them with. Okay, so just we'll go by fast because we only have 20 minutes to go. Homeschooling, generally in the community that I had lived and I had embraced and I had led, is parent facilitated or parent led. A parent takes charge. I will take charge of my children's educational journey in the many decision points. Homeschooling is student-centered. We try to make it student-led, interest-led, meaning what are the interests of the kid? And we will work on top of those in building the different disciplines. It is home-based, and everybody's now home-based. There's no choice. However, prior to COVID, it was not limited to the home. We believe the world is your classroom. We can travel in the middle of June or October. We can go, really on field trips as our material deems it, as our lessons, as we decide. Now, this lesson is more going to be more alive if we go to the actual place where this is going to be discussed further, or this will be experienced. It is also sensitive to the family setup and family season. And I believe this is the one that is very important today. Some families have lost double income. Some have lost one income because of what's happening to COVID. Some families are truly working from home and unable to go to the areas where they have their livelihood. So homeschooling now becomes an option that can thrive in a family setup or in the season of COVID. But of course, again, just as there are setups that will allow it, there are also setups that won't. That's why homeschooling, as I am defining it, will not be applicable to all, but it will be applicable to a segment. Usually one or both parents are involved in the daily engagement, and you may not or may employ hired teachers or relatives. These are the ones wherein you feel inadequate to teach. You can do online learning for that. Or before, we would hire tutors that would come to the house. When you say parent facilitated or parent led, you are the facilitator of learning. You are the one who chooses the atmosphere. You are the one that chooses the kind of environment. You set the tone. You determine what materials you'd like to use, whether you'll blend it with a traditional print or you will add up with, online materials, or you'll go to tutorials that are or what you call educational material online, whether it be a streaming or real-time material, or it's something like an offline that you download. Sometimes we call that, before it would used to be CD-ROM or DVD, but of course now I think that's also unheard of. It is already something you download and you watch on demand, no? But before, we would purchase CD-ROMs and DVDs. So, and you would create strategies, just like I saw that my son was into counting and my older son was in percentages and my daughter was in fractions. I will create strategies and methods to teach all of that in a homeschool setup that makes the learning fun and makes the learning real and contextual. I will not teach fractions as a simple number. I will teach fractions in the area of baking, in the area of cooking, in the area of, grouping things together. So that's what a parent can do. You will create methods and creative strategies for learning. In a homeschool setup, the parent, like me, I'm a doctor. I also had to be the doctor, the nurse, the janitor, the driver, everything else, and the principal and the cook. So that is a multitasking type of role. Apart from that, if you had teachers that had to model good behavior because they were the religion teacher or the Christian ed teacher, if the parent now becomes the Christian ed teacher or the Catholic teacher or whatever, they will have to model behavior. And so that is another tall order for parents. If your children are with you 24/7 now, and you are the person that can model behavior and character, that is another challenge to parents at home, homeschooling. You have to give the standards that you set for a teacher in a school. It has to be now on yours, and you have to find a way to meet those standards that you set for your children. Student-centered would mean that character development is paramount, the learning style and the basis for learning methodologies. You would adjust according to the student. An example of this, if your students are preschool, they're usually kinesthetic learners where they like to move a lot. So you have a lot of music and movement. They're very, they're very into the They can't do abstract learning, so everything is tangible. Everything has to be held, multi-sensory. However, if your children is now growing, you have to adjust your learning style. I mean, you have to learn to adjust your learning methods based on the learning style that is growing or evolving. The student is not your in a like hierarchy, you know, in a hierarchy role that you are supreme as a teacher and the student is lower. It is a partner kind of relationship. That's another difference. And they are engaged in their own learning process where they can actually determine how they want to learn certain things or certain concepts. Students have a voice, they share feelings, and they apply concepts learned. So again, when you think about it, it is like, when you think about it, it is looking a little bit like progressive education, a little bit of Waldorf in it. So it's like there's a multi-approach because parents can actually decide which approach they want to use in teaching certain concepts. So pre-COVID, these are just numbers. I'm just gonna let you read it so that I can rest my voice. But basically, it's been growing prior to COVID. It's been a growing movement. And when I had asked current providers now, what is the rate of increase? They did say it's like almost 100 to more than 100% increase of enrollees. So they're doubling in number and they have not finished enrollment yet and school has not started. So truly, so many parents have moved or have shifted and embraced homeschooling as I've defined it. Later on, you will see the different sort of like permutations or adjustments or evolving setups that homeschooling has now provided because of a larger scale of number of homeschoolers. We have 2 national homeschools per year, and we're going to have one again, which is called the Connect Homeschool Conference, Philippine Homeschool Conference. They can just look for educatingforlife.co. That is where the details for the upcoming conference of the Philippine Homeschool Conference, July 3 to 5. We also have research, and that's what I love, to be able to prove that it works. Okay, so we are Happy, and you can know more about Happy and happy.ph. We're Association of Homeschool Leaders. In terms of legality, these are the DepEd orders that have been released. So homeschooling is legal, it is accepted, it is respected. And just early May 2020, it is now considered one of the learning delivery options by the DepEd. Again, just like in April, there was already a prediction that education system will be transformed because of COVID. And that's self-explanatory. When you look at the algorithm of the DepEd, now this is a little bit hard to understand because there's no arrow where it starts, but nandun tayo sa simula, it's also in Tagalog. But let's just all look into the colorful boxes underneath. These are the learning delivery modalities depending on the availability of a qualified teacher, depending on the availability of online, like broadband, depending on the availability of your learning tools, technology, and because we do have those areas which they call the unreached islands and the regions that are sort of hard to reach. So that's also a big problem for our DepEd. So I think Adrian will be able to explain more of this, but basically, I'm sure you've heard, there's the online synchronous learning where learning is happening at the same time. So sometimes they might call this real time. So if your school is 8 to 12 or 8 to 3, students are online from 8 to 3. Then you would have asynchronous. There are some days that you are online, real-time learning, maybe in a Zoom or Google Classroom, but there are times wherein you are given printed materials to learn. Then you have offline modular. I think this is, if I'm right, maybe Adrian can correct me later, but I think these are the ones that you can download ahead, but you are watching it in a screen and you can still learn from that. However, we do have those areas that they have no Wi-Fi and they have no gadget. So the DepEd will now try to do distance learning through educational TV, knowledge channel, and radio broadcasts, plus printed materials. Then you have the home-based, which is they have no online again, they have no Wi-Fi, they have no laptop, so they will be given modules. And then they gave homeschooling, which to us is a little bit tough as a decision because they really could not imagine that in the scale of 33 million, there would be a large percentage of qualified parent teachers. That's why homeschooling was put in a corner wherein, because they're assuming that not many parents can actually homeschool the way we did or the way we're doing it because of many reasons, whether it be qualification in terms of academic qualification, availability, because some households have two parents working. So homeschooling for the DepEd Ed is an option, but they have all of these offerings before you can make that total decision of being the main teacher of your children. I just show that to just show how it differs, no? And maybe Adrian can show us later on. Although I did talk to the DepEd and we said that homeschooling is a parent-led, child-focused mode of education, but we do utilize digital materials. We do go online when we need to. We do go to tutorials online if we need to. We mix print, which is a textbook or a reference book, with like a National Geographic History Channel, YouTube, whatever educational material. So in the algorithm of the DepEd, they put homeschooling in that section wherein they feel that if you have no access to all of these things. But we had, as homeschoolers of the Philippines, and Homes Happy said that homeschooling is actually also incorporating distance learning. We also incorporate print learning. We also incorporate synchronous learning if we sign up for certain lessons that are happening in real time. But let's ask Adrian to clarify that. But homeschooling pretty much gives you the freedom to decide what you want to do. So you can decide to teach everything yourself. You can decide to outsource certain subjects. If you are enrolled with a provider, the provider can actually have Zoom classes for their students, and you can sign up for that. Remember that prior to COVID, we had classes that were hybrid. In other words, we could bring our children to a center and they had shared classes with their friends. So they had socialization, they had competition, they had varsity, they had a lot of other options, right? So they would go to either music classes, art classes, theater classes, higher math classes, especially if the parents could no longer handle higher algebra or higher science for lab work, dissecting a frog. You know, we would have those classes. So, however, now, because of all of what's happening, all of these classes are offered online, and homeschoolers can also avail of those things. So basically, I'm just going to show you this slide, and I think Adrian, you will share more about it before I end. This is actually just how different it is. You know, if you're a homeschooler, you have the choice of your curriculum. You are the main facilitator of learning, and you are the ones that are necessary. You have to be there. You set the schedule. There's more variety in your lessons, and you manage the assessment. You can decide an assessment that is exam-based. You can decide to make it project-based. You can decide it on your own. This is depending on the provider that you work with. Then you can really have a lot of time for family values and faith building. And in terms of contextuality and relevance, you can really make it integrated or incorporated in the home. Whereas if you're distance learning where the school still leads the curriculum, the teachers are still the teachers, and parents are merely there to access online or access materials or help with the homework, it is pretty much school directed still. It just happens in the home, and there is a need for a screen where a teacher who cannot do face-to-face, -to -face will meet your children. Okay? So Homeschooling, I know it works, 20 years, what it takes for you. So let's say Apple, you'd like to homeschool. What will it take? Of course, you're working. So, but I have seen working parents, working moms who have been able to juggle life because of their desire to do this. So it takes a level of commitment, a certain level of discipline. You have to know why you're doing this. Why did you choose to homeschool versus doing a distance learning class or enrolling in the school that offered, distance learning? You have to have a growth mindset. You have to be willing to learn the new tricks of teaching, willing to learn from your children, willing to learn again new things. And of course, you have to have time and the energy. The younger they are, the more energy you need also. And like I told you earlier, you need to model the character that you'd like your children to imbibe or to follow. So that is very important because character modeling is the best way to teach a certain character. If you cannot show it, it would be hard to preach it. You're going to be like a hypocrite, right? So empathy, patience, love, humility are things that homeschool parents have to model because that's what you want your children to also pick up, right? And you need to decide. I mean, there's so many decision-making points. I showed you the pathway and it's so long. You'll have to figure out those parts and embrace the shift in education that there is now a multiple intelligence belief. It is not just related to math, science, and reading. There is so much more in a child's intelligence. So I'm just showing you this to let you know that there are so many things you decide as you decide a provider, as you decide which curriculum to use. Because when you enroll in a private school, the curriculum is there. You don't even ask, what books do you use? What's your math program? Do you do Singapore math? Are you going to use this kind of math? Oh, for language, are you going to use this? You're not going to ask that. It's all given already. But in a homeschool setup, you have freedom to a certain extent, depending on the provider you choose, to choose your own materials that works for your family. So you'll use cost, you'll use values and faith as your basis. You'll use how easy is it? Is it flexible? So for Apple, for example, I'll probably recommend to use something that's easy to use and teacher friendly because you work, right? So then you would have to think, how old are my kids? We have to know their developmental stage. Maybe for 2 to 3s and 4s, you can't do online learning there. You can't do screen use for like 3 hours a day. They're multi-sensory children. They love hugging and touching. So children from 2 to 3s to 4s, they're not going to be able to do online learning as well, although there are some who are so apt to it. But generally, it's not really good to soak them in the online learning for hours and hours, and they are not able to play, and they're not able to build, they're not able to use their hands. So will you homeschool? So let's say you have the material. Let's say you have the provider that will support you. Then you have to ask yourself, like Apple, can I stay home, for an hour and a half or 2 for my kids? Will I be willing to learn the new tricks on how to homeschool preschool kids? Do I have peace in taking this decision? And do I have helpers? Do I have somebody to assist me at home? And how are my modeling skills? You have to ask yourself. It's not as simple as signing the enrollment form in a private or public school. Why it works? Look at all of this. This is what happened in my family, but I also see it happening in thousands of families. Because relationship matters. It is the foundation for learning. You do not learn from people you don't like, and you do not learn from a broken relationship. You learn on top of a wonderful growing relationship with your parents or with your children. Learning is not set in school years. If a child wants to move further, we will not limit them, and we can teach them higher math if they need to or if they want to. It is flexible. It is able to celebrate the uniqueness of a learner, and there's potential to set the most positive environment. And you use creative teaching approaches. And all of these are actually the pros of why homeschooling can work. And it has seen and has proven to work already. Then this happened for me. I had multi-level children. The traditional tests are only tools. They're not king. You are not a slave to your tests. You are not a slave to the material. You make the material work for your family. And of course, at the end of it all, a parent will find a way. Of course, I do believe teachers love their students, but if you have a 1:50 student ratio, it's very hard to love. It's very hard to put love in action. But if you have a 1 and 2, a 1 parent to 2 children, the love is so strong, they will find ways for children to learn. So just a summary, the Finland success are one of the most successful school systems, and this is the reasons why. And if you read this list, a lot of it are actually the things that we do in homeschool. There's less hours for school and academic, more hours for curiosity, creativity, and play. Teachers are not necessarily highly educated in terms of education for homeschoolers, but they become experts of their own students. And they only need 2 to 3 students if they have 3 children. They need to be experts of only 3 children. Most Finland teachers have MAs or a master's degree in education. And of course, the Finland teachers want to have strong connections, so they follow children from levels 1, 2, 3. They have 1 teacher for 3 levels because the child is followed. And you have high student to teacher ratio, more teachers to students. Tests do not dominate their life. They only start testing at a certain age that is so far from when we start testing. And they integrate, they have problem-based, and they believe in multiple intelligence. Of course, they have lots of government funding. When you look at all these lists, it's all things that we can do at home. And I don't think you will, I can vouch for all of the families I know and that I have represented. We are able to replicate the Finland system in our home. I will skip that. And what's also beautiful is the homeschool resources have been growing. And like I mentioned, homeschoolers are now creating homeschool materials. So we have I Homeschool, Why You Should Homeschool by Edric Mendoza, My Character Showing and Blessing Our Children by Ivy Marquez, and our own Kidstarter Curious Curriculum for 2 to 4 years old, a complete preschool program, which you mentioned this in the start. And that's kidstarter.ph. You can buy it there. We have 30 copies left. We are reprinting soon because we had run out and sold out. So again, before I close, just look at this list. I could not go into the detail of the step by step because we do that for conferences and seminars for a whole day. But here, it works because you can anchor it in a strong relationship where a child trusts the parent and a child is excited to learn because of the positive environment. You are not setting the learning in just school years, that it has to be this, you're flexible. You're able to celebrate the uniqueness of a learner, just as I was able to celebrate my creative artist daughter. You have the potential to set the most positive environment because you model empathy, you model good character, you model humility and love. And you are able to find creative strategies because you are not tied to a lesson plan that is set by a school. And how can you make a difference as a parent? Like you, Apple, know and understand your children. How do they work? How do they get so excited? You build that relationship from the moment they're born. Then you make your schedule and curriculum work for you, not the other way around. You have to find ways where the curriculum will gel into the family system. You have direct observation and you can adjust. If it's too hard, you're going to pull back. If it's too easy, you can challenge more, and you're there. Big schools cannot employ trial and error. We can do that because we're only addressing our 3 children or 2 children. You can create strategies. I've already mentioned all of this, and these are the things that you can do to make the difference. Again, these are the reasons why it works. Multi-level CELTEP, if you have multi-level children. You do not make tests your king, so it does not become a stressful time to learn. You are there to catch the magic moments and build on those magic moments. You are there to make meaningful connections, meaning what is meaningful to the child at that level you can build on. Your pacing is sensitive to your learner. And again, as mentioned, love will find a way. So parents, you can make a difference if you just embrace These things, which we have said have been proven even by the Finland system as the keys to what works in their educational system, are things that can be applied at home. So there. So I just sort of like had to brush through because of time. And I also want to hear Adrian. So I showed you an example, a sneak peek of what homeschooling is and how different is it really from just bringing school at home or doing an online class. It is so much more. It is parent facilitated and child led form of education. And so I would like to invite you guys to just go to happy.ph if you'd like to know more. Happy on Facebook. And we have what you call the Online Philippine Homeschool Conference videos. It was done last May, and they're all still up there in the Online Philippine Homeschool Conference Facebook group. And you can find all the videos about the basics of homeschooling in a more thorough way than this webinar. So there. So I invite you guys to consider homeschooling, but let's listen to Adrian. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. That's a
Yes.
very insightful talk that you had. I'm sure all parents listening to us right now have at least a decision-making process that they can look at. So for parents watching us right now, this webinar will be uploaded later should you wish to go back to the diagrams on why you should choose homeschooling. And I actually like to congratulate you first on homeschooling all your children.
Yeah. Yeah. I will take it. I will take the congratulations.
Congratulations.
It is 17 years. Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah. Thank you.
I am sure many parents admire you for doing that. I really like what you said, that homeschooling helps you discover your child further. And
Yes.
in the end, you get to know your child and they get to know themselves pretty well.
Yes.
And by the end of it, they really are sure what they want to be, like your daughter who's into art. So this is a lot of good things about homeschooling. But our key takeaway is, because when you should proceed to homeschooling, is that you have to be dedicated and you have to be really committed to do it. And lastly, love finds a way. So as parents, we can provide love to our children, unconditional love to our children. So at the end of the day, though we are homeschoolers, we are parents as well.
Yes.
So
yes.
Donna actually gave us a brief background on online learning, as they also use it as part of homeschooling. Now, we're also talking here to Adrian, who is a Google educator, for parents who cannot commit 100% to homeschooling. Also, most of the schools now are going online because we cannot go on site in school. So let's hear from Adrian. So to discuss further on how we can proceed with distance learning for the safety of our children. So hi, Adrian. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, clear.
Yes. And my presentation?
Yes,
Can
it's
you,
clear.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, good evening, everybody. I'm Adrian Luke Cruz. There. I'm an educational technology coach, also Google Certified Educator Level 1 and Level 2, and Google Certified Innovator. But prior to becoming a teacher, I first took up nursing and became a registered nurse. So same with Dr. Simpao, I also started in the medical field, and then later on, my heart moved to the education to help teachers specifically. But I first became a school teacher prior to becoming an educational technology coach. And then, well, after teaching and becoming an educational technology coach, I've been helping other teachers when it comes to integrating digital tools in their teaching, because here in the Philippines, right, kumbaga, yung adoption ng technology hindi pa ganon ka at par when it comes when we compare it with the other schools. sorry, when it comes to with other countries. So I've been doing community work for teachers since 2015 with the help of what we call Google Educator Group. So ito po ay startup community ni Google for educators. So they're actually looking and inspiring educators to help out other teachers to integrate technology, to use the different tools. Kasi here in the Philippines, kung mapapansin natin in the past few years, talagang ang technology hindi pa ganun ka-ine-embrace ng teachers. Kumbaga, a lot still are in the traditional side. Pero kung mapapansin niyo ang distance learning, ang homeschooling, and others, kumbaga, matagal na itong ginagawa, matagal nang nangyayari in other countries, but here in the Philippines, we really needed more awareness and more of like a push for teachers, not just for teachers, not just for schools, but also for parents, that we have different tools already that can help us, that can help teachers to leverage their teaching and to increase or maximize the students' learning potentials. Then the other one also is that I'd also like to address sa teacher side na I think even for parents that the technology or the tools that we have, kumbaga, these are just tools. Kumbaga, these will just help us, but these are not actually a replacement to actual teaching or to actual teachers. So again, going back to the community. So I've been exposed to various communities here and abroad to help out teachers, even other students, on how to explore the different tools, specifically Google for Education tools. Ayan. So I've been also pushing other teachers or encouraging everybody to increase their professional development. So marami po pong opportunities ang mga teachers, not just teaching alone, but with the different applications, different tools offering, not just Google for Education, but other products. Arami natin pwedeng ma-explore and ma-unlock in our career. It's not just, kumbaga tayo, nakakulong sa classroom teaching. But ang dami nating champion teachers here in the Philippines who are really helping others, going towards innovation. So yun po yung isa sa mga pinaka-importante also in teaching is that we also innovate. We help our students unlock also their potentials. Ayan. Now, here are the topics for tonight, for my talk. So ito po yung sasagutan natin. What is distance learning? What are the challenges of distance learning? And then what are the tools on distance learning? And then how can it be an effective replacement for on-site schooling? Well, I guess this one, sabi nila we're already facing the new normal. But I think, kumbaga, this are still, kumbaga, temporary. Kumbaga, well, for now, this will be a replacement to continue the education of the kids. But then again, as teachers, we have to make sure that we can really still cope up with these challenges. And for the parents, I think this is also an opportunity for them to understand what distance learning is and what are the different tools. Kasi ang daming, kumbaga, this has been the buzzword for the past couple of weeks already. Distance learning, online learning. So ano ba tong mga to? Kumbaga, the parents are already confused with ano bang mangyayari? What will happen in the next months? Tama po? So, ito yung ma-discuss natin. Distance learning. Ito po muna. I-discuss muna natin by definition. So, when we talk about distance learning, it's also called distance education or what we call e-learning and online learning. Ayan. So, ang daming terminologies, no? Pero when we try to understand each of the terminologies, pare-pareho sila. So when we talk about distance learning, it's a form of education in which the main elements include physical separation of teachers and students during instruction and the use of various technologies to facilitate student-teacher and student-to-student communication. So distance learning has already happening in the past couple of years. Marami ng schools ang nag-integrate nito. One, they use distance learning to help other students who cannot really come to school pag absent. The other one is that they also use different platforms to increase or extend the learning of the students. Paano po yun? So for example, when they already go home, when the students are already out of the school, when they're already at home, so the teachers can already use different platforms to extend learning. Maybe give more announcements, give additional workload, and let's say, eto lagi itong ginagamit before. Usually kapag meron tayong mga suspension of classes because of the typhoons, so we can use this as a platform to give additional announcements. Now, distance education, by definition, at sa simula po nito, distance education is suitable for the people who is having family obligations and feeling difficulty in attending a regular class. So ito yun. So usually itong mga distance learning are open to universities, colleges, tama po. But right now, ano ba yung distance learning in this time na meron tayong COVID? Ayan. So since meron tayong disruption ng face-to-face teaching, to fight the spread of coronavirus and maintain healthy social distancing, schools across the country have temporarily closed and quickly transitioned from on-campus face-to-face learning to distance learning. So, kumbaga, itong distance learning, inadapt na rin ng lahat ng schools because, again, since face-to-face teaching is disrupted, we have no any other option, especially for the schools, but to continue teaching online. But the thing is, now, here in the Philippines, are the teachers ready? Or are the schools ready? Dahil nga, again, may mga school, marami na tayong schools na nag-adapt to digital learning programs, to distance learning, mixed of synchronous and asynchronous teaching. But then again, marami pa rin schools ang kailangan ng awareness. Not just awareness, but, training for teachers on how to really use the tools. Ayan. I'd like to show some of the challenges that the teachers are experiencing. So ito po. And then the other one will also address side by side kung ano yung kailangan ma-address sa parent side. Kasi definitely, kung may challenges sa schools, meron din challenges for parents. First would be leveraging powerful tools to extend learning to home environment. I think this one, for schools, one would be, ang malaking question mark dito, anong tools ang gagamitin natin, right? If you are saying we're going to implement distance learning and we're going online, what are the tools that we're going to use? Alam ko ba gamitin yan? Or ako as a parent, alam ko ba gamitin ito to facilitate my child's learning? So that's one. Next would be developing understanding of distance learning and digital tools. Again, for the school side and teacher side, dapat by this time, nag-ready na rin ang mga schools when it comes to distance learning. I think we still have more time before the opening of classes in August. Pero for this one, the teachers, the schools, and parents should understand what distance learning is and yung mga digital tools na pwede natin magamit. Kasi sa totoo lang, ang daming tools available online. Marami. All are useful, all are essential, but then again, if we have a lot of tools um, na nasa harapan natin, baka din ma-distract tayo. Kumbaga, again, as teachers, we have to have like just your set of weapons for you to use. And then the other one is that for the parent side, the school should also explain what will happen in the school year, what would be the setup, what will be the guidelines. So this is also a collaborative process between schools and teachers and also parents and guardians to be able to facilitate learning for the students. Again, this is not an easy task. I think this is for everybody, not just here in the Philippines, but all over. That nangyayari to, we have kumbaga, ito ang kailangan natin gawin. We have to deliver online. But then again, ready ba tayo? Ayan. The other one would be distance learning without home internet access. I think this one also, this is also one of the challenges of schools, most especially with students in public schools. Tama po. Kasi again, hindi din naman lahat may internet connection 24/7, or others maybe would have just data, kumbaga walang fiber, kumbaga. So these are still the things that we also have to consider. Even for parents, should we upgrade to a stronger internet connection? Do we increase our data? So what else? Kumbaga, ang daming factors na pwedeng maglaro when it comes to implementing distance learning. Maraming factors to consider. One would be technical issues. In a face-to-face, in an online meet-up or in an online classes, ang daming pwede mangyari. One would be technical difficulties when it comes to our individual devices. Number two, stability of our connection. Minsan kapag mayroon pang bagyo, pag may mga hindi natin inaasahan na weather conditions, that could also disrupt or might interfere with our regular class activities. So that's why I also reiterate to teachers and also for parents that we also allow, kumbaga, we give allowance for some technical errors that might happen during an online implementation or during a distance learning implementation. That's for both teachers and for students. Kaya talagang part of the preparation of schools are checking all the teachers' internet connection, and then the devices are, ang device ko ba ay sapat para makapag-online teaching? So, ang dami natin kailangan i-check to implement this. So, talagang kailangan ng careful guidance also, and not just guidance, pero kumbaga for the schools, kailangan aralin din nila mabuti. Ano yung mga guidelines sila? Ano yung mga rules and implementation sila? And that should be reflected also and communicated sa families. The other one would be engaging students in remote instructions. Our students now are Generation Z. So they have diverse learning styles. Marami silang strategies, and the other one, tama, ang kanilang attention span, maikli po, no? So, kung ang teachers nag-aalala, how do we engage our students inside the classroom? Ang big question mark nila ngayon would be, how do we engage more our students in a remote instruction? And this one also, when it comes to this one, the teacher should also adjust to the delivery. Hindi ibig sabihin na 8 hours ang teaching or 8 hours ang klase ng mga bata in a day. Dapat 8 hours din naka-online ang mga bata. So, hindi din po ganun. Even us, for teachers, or even us for trainers, ang hirap mag-conduct ng online training or online discussions for 4 hours, maybe 3 hours. It's already a challenge for everybody. But then again, we also have to consider that in engaging our students, ang kailangan natin gawin, since lahat ng face-to-face interaction disrupted, lahat ng recitation, wala. Physical, kumaga project making, ng face-to-face, wala. Performance. So, what we have to do is to create modules, to create interactive materials to still engage our students. So, ang palalakasin natin ngayon, dahil walang face-to-face interaction, will be their skills in creating videos, creating materials, output. And in that way also, our students are, kumbaga ang skills sila, they're very much connected with the technology. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo, even for the teachers, parent teachers, when you bring in a tool or technology with your teaching, magulat kayo, iba eh. May magic, may spark when you do this with your students. Because again, our students are Gen Zs already. Ayan. We have to accept also that sometimes, mas magaling pa sila sa atin when it comes to manipulation. Magulat tayo na when it comes to these kind of strategies, our students can also help us. Ayan. The other would be finding ready-made learning content. So, ang concern din ng parents, how will the teachers can create a content? Again, marami tayong ready-made learning content na pwedeng gamitin. Basta, we should have to cite them properly. But the other one also, I'd also like to encourage teachers who are listening or watching now to create their own content, yung kanilang local content. Kasi kung mapapansin nyo, I think this is one of my passion projects as well. I'm encouraging teachers to come up with their own content. Kasi kung titingnan ninyo when you research, halos karamihan, puro puti or puro foreigners who would have, kumbaga, videos for math or videos for science. So with this one, I think this is also an opportunity for Filipino teachers to really boost their creativity when it comes to coming up with their content. Again, for the content, hindi ibig sabihin na 1 hour ang regular classes natin ay 1 hour din tayo mag-online classes with the students na lecture. Hindi po ito ganon. Right now, what we have to do is content chunking. Ano po yung content chunking? Baka din kasi magulat yung mga parents na baka magulat sila na hindi naman nagtuturo yung mga teachers. They're just giving instructions. But actually, right now, hindi natin pwedeng ibabad ang mga bata when it comes to ganito, Zoom or Google Meet for 8 hours. It would be very difficult for them and also for the teacher. So again, ang gagawin ng mga teachers sa mga schools would be content chunking, wherein they would have to break down their lessons into maybe 5-minute, 10-minute reading material or videos. In that way, we can also come up with an independent learning style for our students. Kumbaga, we are already teaching our students to have a self-paced learning. Yun din yung isa. I think this is one of the benefit of having a distance learning approach for our students. Hindi natin kailangan talaga mag-lecture for 1 hour. We become facilitators to all the preparations that we're giving. And then, for the parent side, ang kailangan ng parents will be maliwanagan sila. Ano yung tools na gagamitin? Again, we have to go back to the core tools. Kumaga ang schools, dapat may core tools sila na clear for the parents. In that way, they can also facilitate the learning of the child or their children. Ayan. Also this one, meeting the needs of diverse learners. Again, marami tayong diverse learners, and then we also have to um, address all their needs. Kaya ba? Can we really address the needs of the learners? Paano? We're all doing it remotely. Again, we have different tools that we can use. The more na alam natin ang tools na magagamit or nagagamitin natin within our students or even for the parents, kung alam din natin yung mga tools na ginagamit nila, we'll be able to come up with very good modules. We could come up with good strategies when it comes to our teaching. And then the other one, I think this one, nababanggit ko na to, communicating with families, kailangan malinaw ito. So if kayo po ang parents, dapat po by this time, alam nyo na po kung ano ang direction ng school, ano ang tools na ginagamit nila or gagamitin nila, ano ang curriculum, ano ang strategy, anong scheduling. So yun po yung mga bagay na dapat ngayon ay nailalabas na ng mga schools para ma-inform mabuti ang mga parents. Ayan. So ang daming distance learning types. Ang dami-dami po. But then again, I think this one, hybrid distance education, ito po ang ginagawa ngayon ng mga schools. When we say hybrid distance education, this is actually the combination of asynchronous and synchronous learning in which students are subjected to follow the specific deadline to complete their work. So again, hindi ibig sabihin na kumbaga 8 hours ang ating klase, 8 hours din na naka-online. So again, we have synchronous classes. We use that to facilitate learning, thought processing with the students, asking them questions. I think the other one also, for parents, you have to watch out for this. Ano ba? Abangan or kailangan yung tingnan if the approaches of the teachers ay, kumbaga, kung tinatouch din nila ang socio-emotional learning. Kumbaga po, dahil disrupted ang classes, affected tayo, tama po. Pero affected din ang students. So when it comes to their regular activities, to their regular interaction with their classmates, disrupted din yan. So when teachers deliver their lessons, synchronous man yan or asynchronous, they have to make sure to check also the socio-emotional aspect of the student. Okay ba siya? Is he or she feeling happy or sad? So may mga ganon din also to consider in our lessons. Mapamat man yan or science, Filipino, or any subject. We have to cover that as teachers in our lessons. Kailangan i-check din natin from time to time yung students natin. So we can also come up with strategies like modules wherein there are parts that they can have corners for their students for maybe mini diaries or reflections. That would also be important. Just also to check the students' current state. Ayan. Again, going back with hybrid distance education, ito ay asynchronous and synchronous learning in which the students are subjected still to follow the specific deadline to complete their work. So meron pa rin rules, may scheduling pa rin, but then again, it's all delivered online. Merong schedule for classes, may schedule for reading all the materials, and when to finish specific tasks. Ayan. For this one naman, learning management systems. For the schools, marami tayong learning management systems na ginagamit. Ito yung mga available online learning management systems or what we call LMS. And it's up to the school already kung anong tool ang gagamitin. But right now, I'd like to talk about Google Classroom. So, ito, matunog ng matunog po, no? So, ito ang ginagamit or suggested na learning management system or content management system for online teaching. So, ano ba yung Google Classroom? I started using Google Classroom way back 2015. So, at that time, I've been seeing my co-teachers or my colleagues using Facebook as a tool to communicate with their students, to give out their materials. Well, I find it resourceful, tama po, for teachers. But then again, when we put our learning materials in a social media platform, ang hirap din because the focus of the students are not really 100% on your material. Even for us, parents, teachers, we're also victims on this. Ano? Sometimes we just say, okay, we'll just check our phones, do Facebook for maybe 5 minutes, hindi natin napapansin. 1 hour na pala, 30 minutes na pala yung lumipas. Kumbaga, so even for our students, if we put our materials in a social media platform, please do not expect that their whole concentration would be at 100%. Kaya meron tayong Google Classroom. Way back 2015, naisip ko, okay, why not try Google Classroom? It's still, may connotation tayo na lalo na po sa medyo seasoned, may connotation tayo na pag nakikita natin ng mga bata, nagko-computer ka na naman. Tama? But, naglalaro ka na naman. Or, nagpo-phone ka lang. But, again, nag-develop na ang ating paggamit ng computer, ng laptops, ng phones. Kung before, it's just leisure, play. Now, computers has been a part of our day-to-day activities. So, kumbaga, for this one, for Google Classroom, this is a perfect tool wherein you put your materials in academic environment, even if you're using the technology. So, yan. So, this is Google Classroom. Hindi ito masyadong pinapansin the past few years. But I think this is the perfect time already to utilize Google Classroom. Ayan. So, si Google Classroom ay under ng Google for Education. Alam natin si Google for Education, alam lang natin si Google ay search engine or Gmail. So, yun lang yung usual na alam ng users when it comes to Google. So, they either go to Google to look for info, to search, or they use email. Or sometimes their Google Drive for the storage. But, ang daming pwedeng magamit na tools under Google. And it's what you call Google for Education. Ayan. Ang dami ding terminologies when it comes to Google. Bakit may G Suite? Ano ba yung G Suite? So, G Suite are all the tools of Google. So, collectively, ang tawag po ay G Suite. So, ito ang Gmail, ang Google Drive, ayan, yung search. Ang daming cover ni Google for Education products. So, ito po yan. We have Gmail, we have Google Drive, we have Calendar for all the communication. We have also Google Meet or Hangouts. Now, alternative for other products like Microsoft and Apple, meron din tayong for Google. So, we have Google Docs, we have Google Sheets, and Google Slides. That can be used by the students, and the other one would be Google Forms. Ito naman po yung for online surveys, online quizzes. Again, these are the tools that we can use, both teachers and students, to create output, to do their assignments. So ito pong suite ng applications na magagamit natin in the Google Classroom. Again, I'd also like to address this one. For Google Classroom, ang dami papatrain, gusto namin matutunan ang Google Classroom. For you to learn and maximize the use of Google Classroom, you have to learn each of the applications. Otherwise, kapag hindi nyo alam ito, iisipin nyo, hindi pala masyado maganda ang Google Classroom. And the other one also, ang maganda with the G Suite for Education is that it improves the communication, collaboration, or collaborative skills, creativity, and critical thinking of our students. Mapa-online man yan or face-to-face. Because again, ang meat sauce or ang strength talaga ni Google for education products are its collaborative tools. You'd be able to come up with work, finish work faster, more efficient, because you'd be able to work with your colleagues or even with your students, even for parents, most especially right now. Kung meron tayong isang tool na kailangan pa rin ngayon, that would be our calendar, this one. Kung dati tinitingnan lang natin to as a tool just to check our paydays, special events, this would be very helpful now to continue online teaching or distance learning. So again, these are the different tools that you can explore. Ang maganda is that if a school applies for a Google for Education, it's for free. It's for free for schools. Basta you're a registered school in the Philippines, DepEd, TESDA, or CHED, pwede kayo mag-apply. They're giving it for free. And then for the storage, just a quick run lang. If you just create your own Google account, it's just 15 gig storage kapag gumawa kayo ng @gmail.com. Pero kapag nag-apply as a school, the school will be given as many as 10,000 accounts that they can manage, and for each account, that's unlimited. So kahit magamit, ang dami nagsabi, pwede ko na pala magamit yan kahit Gmail account ko lang. So hindi ko na kailangan mag-apply for a school account. It's okay, you can still use all of the tools. But then again, 15 gig storage lang po ang ating pwedeng matanggap. But then again, if you apply for a school, that's also the advocacy of Google for Education. They're giving it for free. And then for each storage, that's unlimited. So that's why we really encourage teachers, schools to use Google for Education. Because it would be really powerful. Talagang, even for all their class materials, workflow. Yan. So, sa totoo lang po, magamit lang or malaman ng school ang Google for Education tools, and they decide on the platform. So, this would be very good for teachers and for students. And again, for the schools, what we also have to do is to communicate this with the parents na ito rin yung mga tools na gagamitin ninyo. Ayan. So again, itong mga tools na to, or what we call G Suite for Education tools, can also lead to these results: personalized, measured, collaborative, and diverse. You can still come up with PBLs, like what Dr. Simpao mentioned a while ago, project-based learning, self-managed, and then most especially, you can still come up with materials that are authentic and also experiential for the students. So ayan. Again, before I close, technology is merely an augmentation to a teacher. So it can help the process of learning, but it certainly cannot replace the role of the teacher. Again, so ito po, for the parents, we just have to, as schools, teachers, we just have to inform our parents ano ang tools na gagamitin, and we also give them chance to learn this so that they can help their kids. And then last one, technology won't replace teachers, but teachers who use technology will probably replace teachers who do not. So again, marami pa po tayong time. We still have a couple of weeks to learn and choose our platforms para then again maliwanagan din ang mga parents and stakeholders of what will happen to their kids in the coming months. Ayan. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian. So, we've learned a lot from your talk today. So, basically, what we learn is basically it's not because they say distance learning or on the schools have transitioned to online doesn't mean exactly na if you're spending 8 hours at school, you be spending eight
Yeah.
hours online.
Mm.
So merely the technology, I like what you said about technology is merely a tool, and that teachers are really important, are still there to do the learning.
Mhm.
What's nice about our talk today is that I think though every parent right now is very confused about what decision or path to take, but what's a good takeaway about whether you choose to homeschool or to pursue distance learning with your current school, is that it encourages creativity, critical thinking among the students. So and teachers as well. So, in choosing what path we want to take, I think it has to be, we have to decide on first if it is our heart into it. Like, for example, in homeschooling, if we believe in it. For distance learning, Adrian gave earlier a checklist of what the school should have. So, should you decide to continue with your school or to continue with the school, you have to review the checklist that he has to decide if your school is indeed equipped into providing the distance learning for your children. So, before we end, we have several questions from our live viewers. I will be asking. So, first question, um, because right now the school has stopped and everyone is sort of in a shock on how to proceed. Whether we choose homeschooling or distance learning for both of you, how do we know that if your child is coping well, whether with homeschooling or setup or distance learning? Dr. Simpao.
Okay. Actually, there were several schools that tried to shift at the end of March, remember? In Feb and March. And that is actually a guide if you were part of that school on how they shifted and how they adjusted through the summer. Because we've heard a lot of really not so great stories of how they did that real time Zoom, which is also 8 to 3 class, 8 to 3 then ang online learning, no? So I think, of course, we forgive the kind of adjustment because they also did not know any better and they were catching up. But I think, of course, I would love to know more about the assessments, because a lot of the assessments used to be done, on school with the protection of the integrity of the exam or of presentation. But I have seen kindergarten, grade one students presenting in a Zoom to their advisors on how they had executed or applied a learning concept in the school setting, and they had to turn it into like a 3-minute video and for a kindergarten. So in homeschooling we have what you call a system of assessment that is provided by us if we are independent homeschoolers or by the provider based on either on quiz that you make, a project that you set, and there's a rubrics of assessment. It is not merely just a quiz, but how were you as a person? How did you collaborate? How did you communicate? So there are score systems. So I think a lot of schools learned from the mistakes of trying to shift to online or to digital learning in the last
Mhm.
March, and so they are adjusting, and that's actually a key on how great they're adjusting. You must really know by now how they're going to adjust. In terms of homeschooling, The assessments are there. They can be part of the curriculum. They can be given by the provider. And you as a parent, you have a God-given teaching heart, and you can learn how to assess as well. It's all online, you know. So yeah, we do have assessments, and you can easily talk to the child. How are you? Do you like this setup? How can we improve? How can I improve as a teacher? So you have direct assessment na right away there. So that's the homeschooling assessment. Yeah.
Ako naman, adding to Dr. Simpao's statement, when it comes to engagement of our students, talaga nakadepende rin siya sa strategy ng ating mga teachers. Kung mapapansin nyo, after March or April, after ending the school year, last school year, ang daming webinars na lumabas. So I hope that the teachers maximize all the webinars that were given by other experts. Kumbaga, those are their opportunities na kumbaga, those are the opportunities that they sana na nakuha nila para ma-correct nila yung kanilang implementation this school year. But again, the other one also, we are all used with the pen and paper quiz, long tests. But right now, kasi ang worry din ng mga teachers, paano pag magkaroon ng leakage when it comes to giving our online quizzes? I think right now, instead of focusing on the actual answering of questions, we make sure that our assessments for our students are more than answering the questions, but if it's more of how they learned, how they translated into actual output, did they really learn? So it's more of, kumaga, right now, sa mga teachers, isipin na po natin ngayon kung paano natin ititweak yung puro multiple choice, or again, importante pa rin yung mga yun, essay, tama, yung mga all kinds of assessments. But then again, maybe at this moment, we put more weight on the actual work of the students. And again, with that strategy, I think mas mag-enjoy pa rin ng mga students because they learn more from doing. So, ayun.
Yeah. Agree ako doon.
Yes. And then the other one also, to know that the students are engaged. You see them really having fun, even if they're at home.
Yes.
Gumagawa pa din. Ayun.
Yes. Yes.
All right. For the next question for Dr. Simpao, what is the best age to start homeschooling?
Actually, the best age is from birth. You know, I mean, of course, that's expanding the definition of homeschooling, right? I mean, we all, the ones who've gotten pregnant, we've spoken to our babies inside the womb. It's been proven that they are learning prenatally. They are learning hearing your voice, smelling your scent. They know your breast milk from as early as a few months old. So the brain is developing from then. So the homeschooling, wherein you expose the children so that their brain development is stimulated through experiences, through love, through emotion, through words, through reading, begins really at birth, no? Or prenatally even. So when I say start homeschooling, I guess for this question, I guess when you're thinking about maybe a more structure, more sessions, having a curriculum, or just, you know, being mindful that yes, we are homeschooling, the best time is actually preschool, which is the toddler time, which is when you are playing and learning at the same time, because the requirements from the DepEd are not yet there. There's no exam. There's no, you know, walang masyadong rigidity. It's all play-based. It's all reading to the child. It's all experiencing, playing with their hands. So I guess the challenge there is for a parent teacher or a mom or a dad to have a play-learn mindset, not to have a worksheet, I need to learn the ABCs mindset. You will learn more, you will enjoy more if you really start that way. And preschool, that's why I created this book. I'll just show you these books. It's because I wanted everybody to have a good start in preschool. yung bang binigay ko na lahat, from activities to mindset, early education principles to mindset, and to activities. It's all in one home use pa. Yun. So there. So it's preschool is the best time to start, really. Because it's harder to pull and relearn the way of learning, di ba? Although we've seen that right now, with the pandemic, they're pulling out from schools and introducing homeschooling.
Okay. For Adrian, so we mentioned that it's not necessarily traditional schools like you spend 8 hours, an hour per class. What is the recommended average spend per hour for a subject?
Okay. So when it comes to distance learning or having an online class with the students, it depends on the level of the student. So let's say if you're handling high school or senior high school, still it's less than an hour, maybe 50 to 40 minutes, mga around 40-50 minutes. And then pag mas bata, grade school, pwedeng 30 minutes lang um, each session. And then again, in a week, usually mga ano lang yan, mga thrice or twice a week. And then the rest would be modular for for the students. And then the other one also, when it comes to choosing the tools and implementing it with our students, we can go complex kapag mas mataas ang level ng student. So you can introduce different platforms, mga third-party applications. You can do that. You can be very creative, and then you can also unlock the other skills of the students. Pag medyo lower levels, let's say elementary and below, pipiliin lang ng teacher kung ano yung mga tools. Kumbaga mas denumero yung mga applications sa gagamitin. Kasi dina-develop pa rin natin yung younger kids on these tools. And then, kailangan muna natin sila masanay on those tools. Ayun naman.
Okay. And for the last question for tonight for Dr. Simpao, for the parents who are looking into transitioning, her daughter's in 11th grade, how easy or tips on transitioning to homeschooling? Because I believe they have been doing traditional school for the longest time. And what are your tips for transitioning to homeschooling?
Okay. So if that's an 11th grade, I'm assuming that they will probably want to have the DepEd accreditation, right? Because you're going to go to college, no? So one is, of course, since it's senior high, there's a lot of requirements for the senior high that a parent might have to outsource. I mean, of course, you have already trigonometry there, you have physics, you have the strands. So enrolling with a provider that is DepEd accredited for the senior grade 11 or grade 12 is going to be beneficial if the plan is to enroll in a university based in the Philippines that would require a transcript that is accredited by the DepEd. In terms of transitioning, this is where I think Adrian has said the technology of the higher levels, that it's already, you said something like more malalim or more diverse yung options. So
Tama.
based on the track that the child has chosen, I'm assuming incoming 12 or 11, she already chose something, whether it be the science track or the STEAM or the humanities. So she can actually choose, very specific based on the track that she chose and with the support of the provider. So what's going to be a come on for this is it's going to be a very directed learning and specific to the child's track already. And that might actually be a win-win for a grade 11 who has very good tech skills already, assuming, and knows what she wants. Because once you get to the library of online, of course, protection from whatever, the fake news or the bad info, a child doing online who knows what she wants with all the online availability, wow, That's awesome. That's an awesome parang opportunity. The transition though, of course, is what's the role of the parent? If the child is self-motivated, if a child is independent learner, the role of the parent becomes different. You're not anymore dictating there, or the child needs to learn how to schedule her own life, to be more, independent, to really check on her track, and maybe the parent is just on the side. I'm assuming that it's a independent learner, motivated, and knows what she wants. So yun, that's it. How
Okay.
about Adrian? Adrian, can I ask Adrian?
Sure, no problem.
Sure.
Because I am just assuming, or assuming that the statement here, technology is merely an augmentation to a teacher. It was written prior to no face-to-face, right? So
Yes.
this statement is now challenging because it is not just assuming, it is now assuming that the teacher is also inside the technology, right?
Yes.
So because I remember I saw this before somewhere, and I realized when somebody wrote this, their probably concept is the teacher is a face-to-face teacher who you can come to, you see every day, di ba? There's that social
Yes,
emotion.
that's true. So,
Di ba?
yes, sama po. So, talagang in the past years or like past few months, talagang ang expectation lang for the teachers would to come up with a blended learning style
Yeah.
for you
Yeah.
to use. But in our case, most especially in the Philippines, the schools, the teachers would have to do a rapid shift.
Yeah. And they're gonna be delivering it also, they're on the screen.
Yes, tama. So it's even more challenging.
Challenging,
It's even more
challenging.
challenging, tama po, kasi when it comes to online delivery, even for us teachers, trainers, we've been conducting trainings na face-to-face for teachers and even for students, may challenge na eh. So,
Yeah.
even for us trainers, talagang we also had to learn or practice how to speak in front of your laptop without
Yes.
any audience because it's very different. Even if you're a teacher already for the past years, it's different speaking in front of your monitor or your screen without any participants, without students, because you don't see their reaction. And then at the same time, you have to develop kumbaga, a quick skill on how to manipulate while you're teaching.
Troubleshoot. Yeah,
And
troubleshoot those who
Yes,
are lagging.
it's
Yeah.
also like kumbaga co-hosting yourself. You
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to deliver
Yeah.
your content and at the same time make sure that there's no dead air and make sure
Yeah.
that there's listening and then you're clicking some tools. So
Yeah.
yung mga yun, kung yun ang worry ng mga teachers din, practice po. Talagang napapractice ito at na-develop.
And I
Ayan.
think the parent has to come in to become the social emotional arm
Yes.
that will absorb the, I don't know, because when you think about it, my comment lang is that teachers are now learning palang the blended na may face-to-face sana.
Yes.
Tapos tinanggal mo pa yung face-to-face.
Face-to-face.
So,
Opo.
they're trying to accelerate in all of these in time for August. So that's why we need the parents to step in talaga eh. As in, you cannot really outsource everything to distance learning and not get involved. You have to at least step in and understand Google Classroom. Understand that on your own so that it can lessen the burden on the parent, the teachers. And to also give some calm in your
And
life.
another one also, maybe for the parents who are watching this, I hope also that, because all the schools are still in the process of learning this, so let's also expect some technical difficulties that might happen during an online classes with your child. Kumbaga, kasi ano rin siya eh, it's still a skill that we all have to learn. Yan.
And I think that's why a lot decide to homeschool since they realize that given the support that the school gave or yung it looks like hindi magaling yung pagka-innovate ng online nila and ang daming requirements from them, a lot really felt na if I have to sit with my kid for 8 to 2 p.m. to be with them on the gadget, I might as well just homeschool them, especially if they're in the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3
The
na
younger
medyo
ones.
kaya yung scope and sequence. So that's what I'm seeing. Kung they'll just be there anyway to support the delivery of the online learning, I might as well sila na lang. Parang may ganon eh. There's an aspect na ganon. Yeah.
Okay. So we had a lot of topics that we discussed today. And I, for one, who have kids who's supposed to start preschool this year, learned a lot. And I have a lot of discussion with my husband tomorrow regarding the
Great job.
future of my kids. And I hope we have helped a lot of parents into deciding on how they want to proceed with this the education of their children the coming months. If should you decide to go distance learning, Adrian has provided us with the tools. Should you decide to homeschool and you have further questions, Dr. Simpao is at happy.ph. You can check on it, check her pages on Facebook so you can learn. For those educators and parents who are interested, you can visit Look Beyond the Classroom. So you can look for our experts and ask them for questions on further. Due to our limited time, we cannot answer all your questions. But again, thank you for our experts today for enlightening us. I'm sure a lot of parents have been enlightened about what decision to make and learning about a lot about homeschooling at the same time with distance learning. So thank you, Dr. Simpao, and thank you, Adrian.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
evening.
Good evening.
Good
So,
evening.
thank you for all the parents who watch us today. Thanks especially for No Compromise Parenting and Nursery Van for making this possible. Again, please don't forget to follow us at Facebook, No Compromise Parenting, and our Instagram page, No Compromise Parent, and be updated on the latest parenting tips and advices, especially for the questions that we weren't able to accommodate. Make sure to check No Compromise Parenting uploaded videos, and again, to make sure follow us also in Viber Community for a real-time advice on tips and parenting. So for those who did not able to watch or have been deciding, you can go back. This webinar is uploaded and you can read and go back to it again and again to choose your options. So right before we say goodbye, to announce again the winners of our nursery van vouchers, we have the following. So Lala Teliano Viray, May Tria Sabino Castro, Cherry Panibarat Trending, Cassiopeia Serendipity, Army Diaz Aquino, and Army Diaz Aquino. So congratulations. Please make sure to message No Compromise Parenting on Facebook to claim your voucher. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight and hope you learned a lot about our talk today. So thank you. Goodbye.